Hi there, and welcome to the Salt and Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today I have a quick and easy New England style clam chowder that we're going to make right in the Ninja Foodi. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn on the Ninja Foodi and go to sear saute on high and turn the Ninja Foodi on. We're going to add in 6 tablespoons of butter. What we're doing now is making a roux. This roux is going to thicken our soup later on after we're done pressure cooking it. So I'm going to combine equal amounts of flour and butter to make the roux, and we're going to cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes till it becomes a very pale blonde color. Now, roux are used for so many different kinds of cooking, like even a creamy mac and cheese, which I have a recipe for, which I can link to right over there, starts off with a roux. A lot of white sauces start off with a pale blonde roux like we're doing now. And then there's also, like in Cajun cooking, there's a darker roux. And if you're interested in a really easy jambalaya recipe, I will link to that right over there, so you can check that out. In the jambalaya recipe, we work on the roux. We cook it for a good 15 or 20 minutes. It becomes dark like peanut butter. So, oh my gosh, does it add so much flavor. It's unbelievable. This time we're not. We are just going to do a quick cook on this because we want it to stay a blonde roux. So I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon at a time of flour. Now what I've noticed on occasion is that I've needed a little bit more flour than butter. So usually it's equal parts, but I know the consistency that I want for this roux at the end. And so I'm just going to use my judgment, and I encourage you to do the same, and I'll show you some secrets as we get in here. So I know I'm definitely going to use 6 tablespoons, so I'm going to go ahead and put those in now. And get that incorporated. So what I want to happen is I want the flour to absorb the butter, or any fat. You can use any fat. So traditionally, if I was making clam chowder, I would probably use bacon grease because I love crumbled bacon in my clam chowder or on top as a garnish. So I would use the reserve of the bacon grease, and that adds a ton of flavor to clam chowder. But I wanted to keep this meatless and just seafood, so I did not do the bacon grease. I didn't crisp any bacon. So we're just going to use butter. But you could use oil, actually. I mean, really any fat, as long as it will bind with the flour and create the sort of like paste that we want. All right, I'm going to add in another tablespoon right now because I still see I have some shine. And when you have shine, that means you have fat. If you have fat, you can add more flour. If you don't have any shine, don't add any more flour because you'll end up with a very floury tasting roux, and it won't taste very good in your soup or whatever sauce you're making. All right, that's looking good. What happens is like the butter cooks and the flour cooks, and it develops this like nutty flavor. It's actually quite delicious, which seems weird for flour and butter to be delicious, but it actually is. I'm gonna switch sides here and get this in. Okay, so that's good. So I have plenty of flour now. I've got, there's no more shine, so I'm not going to add any more flour, and we're just going to let this cook for about 2 to 3 minutes until it becomes a very, very pale color. A very pale, like pale blonde, kind of. And it happens sort of fast, so I think what I'm going to do now is go ahead and turn the Ninja Foodi off. And then the residual heat will continue to cook that because I need a few minutes to get it out of the pot. So I don't want to take it all the way to blonde and then leave it in there because it'll just brown up. Now that won't ruin your soup or anything like that, but it just creates a darker color in the soup. And we want a cream soup. We want it to be white in color. So we don't want to take this too far past the blonde stage, which I think it's just about there. Okay, that looks great. So now we're at a good color, and I'm gonna go ahead and scoop out the roux, and we're gonna put it in this little bowl. I'm taking the roux out because we don't want to go under pressure with the flour and the butter mixture. What could happen, which probably would happen in this recipe, is this would thicken the sauce very fast, and that would create the water notice. The Ninja Foodi would think that something was burning. Now, if a little bit is left in the bottom, do not worry about that. That small amount is not going to be enough to create the water notice. But we do want to deglaze the pan, and I'll do that in just a second. I think I can get a little bit more out. All right, turn the Ninja Foodi on, sear saute, hit start. So most of the roux is out of the pot, and that's all we need to do. There is a little bit more in here. Don't worry about that. That's not gonna cause you any trouble. We're gonna put in enough liquid to take care of that, and it will not become thick enough to give you the water notice, so it's fine. Now what we're gonna do is just saute our vegetables for a few minutes. So put in 2 tablespoons of butter and 1 cup of diced onion. I used Vidalia, but you can use any kind you like. I have 2 stalks of celery, which is about 2/3 of a cup, and they are in about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch dice. Again, no big deal. If you want bigger chunks, make them bigger. It's fine. If you want smaller chunks, make them smaller. If you don't want celery in your soup, don't worry about it, but it does add a nice flavor, really. If you don't want onions, don't add them. Now, carrots, that's not a traditional ingredient necessarily in clam chowder, and feel free to leave them out. It's no problem whatsoever. But I really love the way they add some color to the pretty much all white soup. So we will saute those for a few minutes. While that's happening, let me talk about the other ingredients we have. So I'm just gonna move this roux right over here. That is super hot, so be careful. And I'm gonna take a little bowl with a little strainer here and get my clams drained. So what I found at the grocery store, because we're very limited where we live, so I don't have like a gourmet grocery store or anything. So anything that I'm making, I'm getting at like Walmart or Kroger or just a normal grocery store. So this is a Bumblebee Fancy Whole Baby Clams, and they are fantastic. Like, I was really impressed when I was testing the recipe. So I have 3 cans of those, and they're super cheap. I mean, I think they're less than $2 a can, I know that. I think they're like $1.47 or something, so they're really inexpensive. All right, so I'm gonna open those up and drain them out. I want to use the juice from the clams in my soup, but I don't wanna put the clams under pressure, because what happens to clams under pressure? They become tough and chewy. Have you ever had soup that's with clams in it, a clam chowder, and it's really chewy clams? Ugh, I don't like that. So what I'm gonna do is drain these, and I'm gonna pop those clams back in the refrigerator until we're ready to add them after we pressure cook. Sure I get them all out. All right, I'm gonna dump this in the bowl just so it doesn't start to overflow. Dump those in. You definitely wanna keep your clams in the refrigerator though until you add them in. Perfect. I love that can opener because there's nothing to cut you. I cut myself all the time when I use the other kind, so I really like this one. Okay, dump those over there. Now, I hear this starting to saute, so I'm gonna move it around a little bit. Now this does not have to saute for very long at all. And I'm gonna add in some seasonings. And really simple seasonings, okay? It's 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And that's it. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna pop the clams into the refrigerator until we're ready for them. Then we're gonna finish up our clam chowder. Okay, so this has been sauteing for about a minute and a half or so, and I'm gonna add in some clam juice. This is Bumblebee brand clam juice. Got it at Walmart, again, super cheap, and it's gonna replace some of our water. So we're using 2 cups of regular tap water, and then we're using 2 cups of this clam juice. That just gives added flavor. You could skip that if you wanted. You could use all water and just double the amount of the base that we're using. So we're using a clam base from Miners. I did test this recipe without the clam base, and it just really was missing that little oomph. So I recommend that you purchase it. I think you can, there's 2 different kinds you can get. The Miners is what I recommend, but I know a lot of people like, I think it's called Better Than Bouillon. I think they have a clam base too, but I've not seen it in regular grocery stores. So I think it is something that you have to get on Amazon. I'll link to that below in the description for you, okay, in case you want to pick some up. But if not, you can make it without it. It's still good. It just really added that extra flavor that I think that everybody looks for in a New England clam chowder. All right, mix that up. Add in the drained juice from those 3 cans of clams. We're gonna add in 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme. And I just kind of stripped them off the stalks. You could also use dried thyme. You would just use half as much, so 1 teaspoon. Then we have 1 little bay leaf that's gonna go in there. Just give that a stir around. Okay, so we also need to put in some garlic, because I love garlic, and I love roasted garlic. And that's what we're gonna use in this soup. Now, you could omit this as well, but boy, oh boy, does it give a nice flavor. And I just roasted the garlic, honestly, in the Ninja Foodi, so it's still a little warm. And when it's warm, you can usually push it up, and they'll all just start to come out. So it makes it really easy to just add in the whole bulb of garlic. Now, my garlic was getting a little old, so I've got some of those green things, little stems that start to form, but it's not going to change the flavor of anything. All right, perfect. So 1 bulb of roasted garlic and 2 cups of water. So this is going to be a full pot of soup. This is enough to serve 10 people. It makes 10 cups. So if you're just serving it like before dinner, if you want a huge bowl of it, then it'll probably serve 6 people. Okay, the last thing we need to do before we go under pressure is peel and slice our potatoes. Now, I'm using 2 different kinds of potatoes. This is not necessary. You do not have to do this, but there is a reason why I do it this way. I have 1 pound of Yukon Gold potatoes. They're just called golden potatoes. I couldn't find them that actually said Yukon Gold, but they're just called golden potatoes. And then I also have 1.5 pounds of russet. The reason why I use 2 different kinds is because the russet will sort of break down a little bit more in the 2-minute of pressure cooking, and it sort of thickens the soup for you some. So if you use all Yukon Gold, which don't break down as much, you're gonna have probably a little bit thinner of a soup. If you use all russet, you'll have a little bit thicker of a soup, which is fine. But I like the combination of both because I like the bite and the firmness of the Yukon Gold. They hold their shape, and they're not hard or anything, but their texture is good under pressure for 2 minutes. These will be a little bit softer. You use whatever potatoes you want to use. The little new potatoes, you don't even have to peel the potatoes. I mean, literally, whatever you want to use in here, just use 2 pounds of potatoes. So I'm just gonna, real quick, peel and dice these up. All right. There goes in the 2 pounds of diced potatoes. So now let's just get some of the peel off there. Give it a stir. I'm gonna check around, make sure I didn't forget anything. I'm famous for that. Absolutely famous. Okay. Done. Now we can pressure cook. So we're gonna put on the pressure cooking lid. Just turn it. Make sure the valve in the back is to the seal. That's really important because we don't want the steam to escape. We want to go under pressure. We're gonna turn the Ninja Foodi on, go to the pressure button. High is what we want. The time we're gonna go to is 2 minutes. Isn't that awesome? I mean, 2 minutes and we are gonna be done. All we have to add in is our heavy cream and our clams, and we're done. We just made clam chowder. I mean, like that. It's fantastic. This is usually an all-day process, guys, so this is pretty exciting for me because I love clam chowder. My husband, no, he does not like it, but he said this one was really good for clam chowder, so I'll take that as a compliment. All right, we'll be back. We're gonna do an immediate release right after the 2 minutes is up, so like this is super, super quick. All right, so we came to pressure really fast. I mean, it was probably less than 5 minutes. And even though we had a lot of liquid in the pot, it was all very thin liquid. So it really came to pressure quite quickly. Then we cooked under pressure for 2 minutes and I did an immediate release. And now we go ahead and keep it on the keep warm. You could even turn it on a low simmer, you know, saute, and just turn it to low if you wanted. We're gonna add in that roux. That's our thickener for the soup. Now there's another way you can make this soup if you didn't want to fool around with, you know, taking the roux out and all that kind of stuff. There's another way you can do it. You can use the same exact recipe, throw in all the ingredients and put it on slow cook for 4 hours and it really turns out nice. Now I'm gonna dig out that bay leaf. You wanna remove the bay leaf. That's not something you wanna serve to people. It adds a nice flavor, but you don't want anyone eating it. All right, give this a little stir, and you can already see it starting to thicken up, so that's great. And you can tell the difference in the potatoes. So the gold ones are the yellow gold. They're the golden Yukon ones, and these are the russets. And the russets are gonna be a little bit more tender. They're not gonna hold their shape as well, but they do help to thicken the soup. It just looks gorgeous. It smells wonderful as well. All right, let's add in our clams that I just took out of the refrigerator just a few minutes ago. You don't want those sitting out for any length of time at all. Wow. This smells so good. All right, for the final touch, we're gonna add in 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. Now, if you wanted to add in half and half, that's fine. It just won't be as thick or as rich at the end, but it's still fine to use. You can even use whole milk if you want. Now it's gonna get that nice white color. That's what we wanna see. All right, now what I recommend at this point is, and I'm just gonna put a little bit in this bowl. We're still gonna let it thicken up just a little bit because there's still some roux pockets down in there, so we want that to all kind of combine. But right now, what I'm gonna do real quick is just give it a taste for seasoning, just to make sure that I don't need to add any more salt or pepper, because we didn't put that many seasonings in there. We're relying on the flavors of the clam. No, nothing. It needs nothing. Oh, it's perfect. It's the perfect amount of salt. That's wonderful. Because the base that we use, the clam base, has salt in it too. So, all right, so I'm gonna let this sit and kind of combine. I'm gonna stir it periodically, but I'm also gonna close the lid. I do that a lot when I'm letting soups thicken or spaghetti sauces thicken, that kind of thing. I just close the lid and let it go for a few minutes. What I'm looking for right now is to make sure there's no more pockets of, you know, the roux, because I want that to be dispersed throughout. I don't want anyone to bite into a pocket of the roux. Although it doesn't taste that bad, believe it or not. It's got a nutty flavor, but still, it's not what you want in your clam chowder. All right, that looks good. So you could either leave the lid open or close it. It doesn't really matter. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna leave it open. That way some steam will come out and it'll even thicken even more. And we'll just have it on the keep warm, and that will keep it at a good temperature until you're ready to serve it, which we're gonna do in just about 5 minutes. So we've thickened up very nicely. I'm very happy with this. If you wanted your soup a little bit thicker, you could take in a little potato masher that's safe for nonstick and kind of mash up some of the potatoes, and that would thicken it up more. But this is just perfect for me. It looks beautiful. So I'm gonna get a scoop out here. can see. I love that color of the carrot. I just think that is so pretty in the clam chowder, but it's definitely optional. And then you can't have clam chowder, in my opinion, without oyster crackers. Although I do prefer the kind that are round. They're like, you have two round balls and you crush them together, and I don't know, those are just wonderful. I can't find them anymore. I don't know, I'll have to ask my mom. She used to get them all the time, so I'll have to ask her where she finds hers. Maybe she'll mail me some after she sees this video. All right, let's give it a taste. Wow, that is really, really, really good. Oh, I'm loving it. The potatoes are pretty soft. Let me get one that's the Yukon Gold. That's still pretty soft. A little bit softer than the other two times I made this recipe. So if you like your potatoes a little firmer, you might actually do a 0 minute or a 1 minute pressure cook. Because that's all we're really doing is cooking those potatoes. Everything else is already cooked, so it's fine. All right, let's try the carrot. And I've got some clam in every bite. So that's, I think the 3 cans, which is 30 ounces of the canned clams, that seems to work as a good ratio for this recipe. I love clam chowder. Well, personally, I would definitely use bacon. That would be my thing, but I love bacon. So if you want to do that, just crisp up several strips of bacon. Use the bacon grease instead of the butter, or for part of the butter if you don't have 6 tablespoons. And then you can either add in the bacon while it's pressure cooking or afterwards is what I would do. I think it's going to add enough flavor, but it's also going to retain some of its crunch. It won't get too soft. And I think that would be also a perfect topping on top. You could also add cheese if you wanted, although I don't think I've ever seen that done. Cheese is good though. I mean, it's delicious. So thanks so much for watching. And if you want another fantastic and easy recipe for the Ninja Foodi that would pair perfectly well with this clam chowder, I'm gonna link to it right over there, and it's homemade bread.